Good morning, everyone. Am I audible and visible? I can hear myself. Am I audible and visible to all? Kindly let me know. Audible and visible, ma'am. Okay, great. All right. So, as discussed in the previous class, good morning, everyone. Pallavi, Anushri, Real Me, Ayushi, Tasharika, Shivesha. So, as discussed yesterday, we are taking up certain articles from this magazine called Down to Earth, which CLAT really likes. Yes, and I hope that they like it this time around too. Anyway, now the very first one is about this protest that we had done when we were doing these environmental protests, global as well as domestic, if you remember. There was something, let's first look at that slide. So we did something called Save Array. We spoke about it yesterday also. Hi, Raju. So, Save Array is basically a protest that is happening in Mumbai. Why? Because there is this array colony wherein a lot of trees are being cut down. At least that was what was happening. And a lot of these people were protesting against it, citizen led protest, right, against the Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation BMC, and the people who were staying over there, they said that this particular flora and fauna is the only thing that we have in this city, and so just let it remain. Don't mess around with it, right? And this was like the Mumbai Metro Rail Corporation Limited case, wherein the trees are going to be cut down, and then they are going to make this what do you say, Metro Rail Corporation over here. Now, the latest bit is that the Supreme Court has lifted the status quo on tree felling for metro car shed development in the Array forest, which basically means that our Honorable Supreme Court has given a green signal to the metro car shed project, which is happening over here. And the Supreme Court bench, headed by Chief Justice of India, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and Justice P.S. Narasimha, they have allowed this to happen. And they've allowed the cutting down of 84 trees in this particular area. Of course, they do have a problem with it, but our Honorable Supreme Court said that, of course, you cannot put a full stop on development. What you can possibly do is a sort of development that is sustainable in nature. Right? Good morning. So, ये आप दिमाग में रख लीजिएगा कि Save Array, we are talking about Mumbai over here. A lot of citizen-led protest was happening. It is still happening. This is against the Metro Rail Corporation project that they were making. And they were protesting against the Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation. And of late, in the month of November, the Supreme Court has given a green signal to this particular project. Now, so COP15 Montreal, Asia must speed up its protected area coverage 6 times to meet the 13 to 30 goal. Now, to understand all of this, let's first go on to something called the Convention on Biological Diversity. Now, the Convention on Biological Diversity was signed by around 150 government leaders during the Rio Earth Summit, the Convention on Biological Diversity, wherein they said that, biological diversity is not just taking care of the plants and the microorganisms. It is also about taking care of the people and medicine and fresh air, water, the works, all of it. So we need to take care of that. And so 150 countries, they came and signed it. This convention, it came into force in 1993, and India became a part of this convention in 1994. So it was talked about in 1992 during the Rio Earth Summit. What are we dealing with over here? We are talking about a convention that is dealing with biological diversity, and it is not just talking about plants and microorganisms. It is talking about the entire ecological space, where it also includes people and fresh air, water, shelter, right, clean and healthy environment. सो 1992 में बात किया, उसको हमने इम्प्लीमेंट किया 1993 में. इंडिया became a part in 1994. At present, there are 196 parties to this convention, right? Elizabeth Maruma Mrema, a national of Tanzania, she is the one who is heading, she's the executive secretary to this particular UN Biodiversity Convention. So 1993 के बाद अब इन लोगों ने क्या किया? There was a summit in 2010. So it came into force in 1993. We became a part of it in 1994. And in 2010, there were certain Aichi targets that were taken up by this particular, by the members of this convention. So this summit, it took place in Nagoya, located in Japan's Aichi prefecture. And what did they talk about? They made a lot of goals. Those goals were talking about how deforestation should become at least half, right, during the coming decade. And we need to curb pollution. We need to stop pollution from happening, right? But however, these targets, although they were very, very ambitious, but they were quite vague, and they did not, really specify the targets per se. I mean, much like what happened with the Millennium Development Goals, and because of lack of funding and because of vagueness of the targets, it sort of failed. So let's talk about it. And then we will go on to the 13 to 30 thing and, what are they talking about? So, when these parties to the convention, when they said, okay, we are also going to abide by the Aichi targets, they were expected to devise their own national biodiversity strategies. So whenever we don't have very clear-cut instructions, the pace of such a development, it happens on its own. Some countries will do it really well, some countries won't, right? And nearly all the parties did create such strategies, but they could not implement it properly. The most notable objective was, and one of the only few numerical goals where fixed targets were set, was to protect or conserve 17%. We need to keep this in mind, and I'll tell you why. We need to conserve at least 17% of all land and inland waters and 10% of the ocean by the end of the decade. So land and inland water के लिए, like शिवेचा जैसे हम लोग district बोल देते हैं, है ना, provinces बोल देते हैं. So area को define करने का तरीका. ठीक है. So we wanted to conserve at least 17% of the land and inland water and 10% of the ocean by the end of the decade. Okay, so 2020 तक ये चीज हो जानी चाहिए थी. While some progress was made, the entire world ultimately fell short of these targets. Today, about 15% of the world's land and 8% of the ocean territories are under some form of protection, but it was not actually whatever was, the targets were not met. Right. And so hence, that is what Elizabeth Maruma Mrema, she says, some progress was made, but it wasn't done entirely. And so at the end, Aichi targets were deemed to be a failure by the United Nations. And so then in 2020, they were like, acha, ab ye wala to fail ho gaya, ab hum aur precise targets banate hain aur kuch aur karne ki koshish karte hain, taki hamara ultimate goal of the conservation of biodiversity, it actually happens. And of course, we should keep it in line with the sustainable development goals, because they are also talking about people and land and life below water and life above land and all of that, right? So now what did they come up with is called the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. So convention sign किया 1992 में and 1993 में उसको implement किया. India became a part in 1994. आईची टारगेट्स जो कि जापान में जाके हमारा समिट हुआ, वहां पे हम लोगों ने एक डेकेड के लिए 2010 से लेके 2022 तक many targets we came up with, but numerical targets were not there. And amongst the numerical targets were two, which we have to keep in mind. One is 17% of the land needs to be conserved and also the inland water. And the second one was your 10% of the ocean. Okay, and we fell short. 15% of land ki protection ke liye hum pura world, not just India, right? And 8% of the ocean ke liye hum logon ne kuch na kuch kiya hai. So अब 2020, post 2020 के लिए हमने एक और framework बनाया, and that is one of the most ambitious projects of this particular convention called 30 into 30 goal. So the countries have committed to protect 30% land and sea, 30% land, 30% sea by 2030 under this goal. So it's rather simple to learn this: 20, 30, 30 and 30%, right? Now, what did they talk about in this particular COP15 Montreal में जो हुआ है? ये Conference of Parties. We are not talking about UNFCCC. We are not talking about the United Convention to Combat Desertification. We're talking about the Convention on Biological Diversity. ठीक है? अब यहाँ पे इन्होंने बोला that the Asian countries really need to step up their game if they want to actually meet this goal by 2030, and they need to like do whatever effort they're doing, they need to do 6 times that effort. So it was found that most Asian countries have failed to achieve even the global minimum target of 17% जो Aichi targets के अंदर हम लोगों ने रखा था, right? Only 40% of the countries have achieved the target of minimum 17%, right? The target of 17% is part of the 20 Aichi targets. We've already dealt with that, right? December 2022 में ये COP15 हुआ, तो आप बोलेंगे नहीं मैम पेपर तो बन गया, ये क्यों पढ़ा रहे हो? तो भाई कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज तो अभी हुआ है, लेकिन एटलीस्ट कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी एंड आईची टारगेट्स एंड 13 to 30 वाला जो पोस्ट 2020 फ्रेमवर्क है, वी शुड कीप दैट इन माइंड, राइट? If there is a question that says, when was this 13 to 30 target, how was it floated? So it was for the very first time, it was mentioned in this particular article in 2019. And that article is called A Global Deal for Nature, Guiding Principles, Milestones. Good morning, milestones and targets. And it was published by this journal called Science Advances. Fine. So we've understood this entire thing. We've understood 1992, 1993, 1994. Then we know 2010. It happened in Aichi. And so it's called the Aichi targets. Everyone failed in this, right? 17% of the land and 10% of the ocean. We ended up talking about 15% and 8% respectively. पोस्ट 2020 फ्रेमवर्क में 30 into 30 किया, 30% लैंड को सेव करना है, 30% ओशन को सेव करना है, कब तक करना है? 2030 तक. और सबसे पीछे कौन है? एशिया. और कितना times they need to increase their whatever they are doing, they need to step up their games at least 6 times the effort they need to make whatever they are making right now. Okay, now the next one is maternal mortality rate. Maternal mortality rate is very, very simple, right? It is defined as the number of deaths per 1 lakh live births. Now, your homework, since we've done this plenty of times, is who is the Registrar General of India, because जब सेंसस के बारे में बात की है, नेशनल पॉपुलेशन रजिस्टर की बात की है, सिटीजनशिप अमेंडमेंट की बात की है, every time we've spoken about Registrar General of India. So Registrar General of India, ये IAS ऑफिसर आज की डेट पे कौन है? अगर पता है तो लिखो, अगर नहीं पता है तो लर्न करो. So according to this latest data that they have come up with, they have said that, the maternal mortality rate in our country has decreased, right? And we have improved this particular ratio. It is 97 deaths per lakh in 2018 to 2020 from 103 in the past. And on the regional level, Assam में सबसे ज़्यादा highest maternal mortality rate है. And Kerala is the best performer. So we need to know the best and we need to know the worst. So the best is Kerala, and Kerala will come up like a lot in many, many other things. They've done very well almost everywhere, right? So Kerala continues to be like the best performer, and Assam ka jo aapka maternal mortality rate hai, that is highest, right? They really, really have to work hard. Okay. Anyway, so then is your maternal mortality rate is the maternal death of women in the age of 15 to 49 per lakh of women in that age group. Now, this is a definition that we have come up with, right? However, why is it 15 to 49? It shouldn't be that ideally, because adolescent birth rate is also something that we are trying to reduce. But we have seen that there are, this is the age group where a lot of childbirths are happening. And so this is the definition that the Registrar General of India has come up with. but we still lag behind the UN mandated sustainable development goals, wherein they have set 70 deaths per 1 lakh. So we are almost 27 away from the target, and but we are going to make sure that it happens by 2030, right? Also anemia. So anemia मुक्त भारत के बारे में भी हमने बहुत बार बात की है. So anemia levels have increased is what you have to keep in mind. That's all. That anemia levels amongst the women, it is not as if anemia does not happen to men, but because of menstruation it happens more to women, and so hence the levels have increased from 2015 to 16 till 2019 to 21. ठीक है. अब नहीं. So how many states have achieved the MMR target? The MMR target, bache, is 70, right? We have come till 97. So if I say we've not achieved the target yet, but yes, we can say that Kerala has done very well. Yes, and Maharashtra, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, as you can see on your slide. But our target will be reached when we bring this down to 70. Okay. Then is your zombie virus. So everybody has read about it. In fact, we've spoken about it in class also. कि अच्छा zombie virus revive हो चुका है, ये है वो है, right? So all we need to know is कहाँ पे revive हुआ, कौन सी जगह है, क्या lake है, what is the name of that virus. So European researchers have raised concern of yet another pandemic after resurrecting a 48,500-year-old zombie virus. So you just keep this in mind. 48,500-year-old, okay? And this is from a frozen lake in Russia, okay? And permafrost is permanently frozen land, right? It could cause a new public health threat because there's like, these scientists are saying that because of global warming, eventually it will start melting and these viruses will come forth and they will, there will be pandemic, simple as that. The new strain is one of the 13 viruses outlined in the study, which possess its own genome. And the oldest, so this has been named as Pandora. Pandora box करके आपने एक बचपन में कहानी सुनी होगी जहाँ पे वो बोला था कि don't open the Pandora's box. You also use it as a मतलब as a saying wherein एक अगर तुम चीज निकालो तो बहुत सारी problems होनी शुरू हो जाएगी, and it is after the mythological character Pandora, right? And this has broken the previous record held by 30,000-year-old virus discovered by the same team in Siberia in 2013. So 2013 में अब हम लोग बात करेंगे, right? At the target which has been set by national health policy is what you're saying. So, okay, not the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So these are the ones that have performed well according to the national health policy, which है the ones on your screen. I thought UN Sustainable Goals के बारे में आप बात कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. So अब हमारा ये आ गया 48,500-year-old. This is in Russia. Russia में ये कहाँ पे Pandora virus has been discovered at the bottom of a lake in Yukachi Alice in Yakutia, Russia. Okay? And they say, such viruses have also been found in the past, even in the intestines of a Siberian wolf. Okay, so Pandora is something that you can keep in mind, 48,500, and Siberia is something that you can keep in mind. That was 30,000-year-old virus that was unearthed. Now you can see something over here, which is called the Fujivara Effect. Again, I have taken this from down to earth. Yes, it is important for us. What is important? What do we need to learn? We'll just look at that. So now on September 1st, 2022, a super typhoon Hinamnor, right, the strongest tropical cyclone of the year, was going towards Taiwan from Western Pacific Ocean. I mean, if you can see this particular image on your screen, you can understand what is happening here, that, there are these two tropical storms that are coming towards each other, and they are sort of dancing around each other. Now, once they dance around each other, they can either become like a very, very strong cyclone, or one can overpower the other, and which is what has happened this time around. So we just need to know what is this process called, so this is like the textbook definition of Fujivara effect, whatever happened in 2022 September. So the two tropical storms that we are talking about is one is Hinamnor and the second one is Gardo. Okay, so Gardo and Hinamnor, they're coming towards each other and they're sort of dancing, as you can see it in the screen. After the dance that lasted over the day, right, Hinamnor devoured Gardo. Gardo को उसने imagine उसको overpower कर दिया, ठीक है, and eventually it made its landfall in South Korea and it drowned 7 people on September 7th. Fine, but in this case, the intensity of Hinamnor also decreased. So it overpowered Gardo and the intensity decreased. But the opposite can also happen. Then both of them, they combine and the intensity increases and a lot of catastrophic effects can follow because of that. So in recent years, several storms have come close to undergoing the Fujiwara effect. Just a week after Hinamnor engulfed Gardo, 2 more hurricanes, Danielle and Earl, formed one after the other in the North Atlantic Ocean. So here we were talking about the Pacific Ocean and here we are talking about the North Atlantic Ocean, right? Both of these we are dealing with the year 2022. What is this effect called? Fujiwara effect. The first two were Hinamnor and Gardo. Pacific Ocean, North Atlantic Ocean wala was Danielle and Earl. Okay. Around the same time, another hurricane K also brewed in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. So these are the names that you have to keep in mind. So what were the names? Hinamnor, Gardo, right? And then North Atlantic wala kaun sa tha? Danielle and Earl. And Eastern Pacific wala kaun sa tha? K. ठीक है. Baki 2020 mein, these hurricanes Marco and Laura had also formed back-to-back in small regions of Gulf of Mexico, and they created a possibility of the Fujiwara effect. Like I said, Fujiwara effect is any interaction between tropical storms formed around the same time in the same ocean. Same time, same ocean, right? Wherein the distance of the eye is, of course, wo abhi ghumi ja raha hai, kahan se eye dikhao? The center, right? So the distance between the eye of these two storms is less than 1400 kilometers, right? And the wind speed is really, really fast. Now, किसने नाम डाला इसका? Fujiwara effect. It was identified by Sakuhi Fujiwara, okay, a Japanese meteorologist whose paper first recognizing the Fujiwara cases was published in 1921. The first known instance of the Fujiwara effect was 1964 in the Western Pacific Ocean. Naam inke learn kar lo, Mary and Kathy. Okay, so Sakuhi Fujiwara was the person, Japanese meteorologist, who named this particular phenomena back in 1921. And the first time around that we saw something like this happening was 1964. And the names of those two typhoons were Mary and Kathy. And which ocean are we talking about? We're talking about the Pacific Ocean. Again, then 2022, Hinamnor and Gardo. Hinamnor and Gardo. They came together. Gardo was overpowered by Hinamnor, but thankfully Hinamnor's intensity also reduced, and because of which there was a disaster that happened in South Korea and around 7 people died because of this, right? Secondly, then there was the North Atlantic Ocean that we were talking about, जहाँ पे Danielle and Earl की बात हो रही है. Around that time, K करके भी एक hurricane था जो Eastern Pacific Ocean में आया था. 2020 में Gulf of Mexico के ऊपर possibility लगी Fujiwara effect की, लेकिन हुआ नहीं. Marco and Laura. ठीक है. सो आप जो कल आपने जो कल पढ़ाया, आज पढ़ाया, उसका पीपीटी सेंड कर दीजिएगा जी. जैसे आपका वन लाइनर नो ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट, यू हैव टू बिलीव मी, मैं अभी फिर उनको बता दूंगी, वो आपका माय जोन में डाल देंगे. ठीक है. Okay, now comes your tribal development report of 2022. Why is this very, very important? Because this is the maiden report, like first of its kind since 1947 that we made a report which is just talking about tribal development in our country. Right? So India's tribal community forms 8.6% of the country's population, right? And according to the 2011 census, क्योंकि भाई उसके बाद तो census हुआ नहीं, क्योंकि कोविड आ गया, राइट? एंड दे से दैट यू नो दे आर स्टिल एट द बॉटम ऑफ द, मतलब इतना ज्यादा उनका डेवलपमेंट नहीं हुआ है इवन इन द पास्ट 75 years of our independence. This report, which is launched by, you please learn the name of this foundation, Bharat Rural Livelihood Foundation. So Bharat Rural Livelihood Foundation, they have come up with this particular report, right? And this report says that the tribal population that comprises of 8.6% of your country's population has not really done very well in these 75 years of independence, right? Central India is home to 80% of the tribal communities in the country, right? So Madhya Pradesh में सबसे ज़्यादा tribal community है, उड़ीसा में है. अगर diversity of tribal community की बात करो तो North East में तो बहुत ही ज़्यादा diversity है, right? When was this Bharat Rural Livelihood Foundation made? It was made in 2013. It acts as an independent society under the Union Ministry of Rural Development. Fine. So Union Ministry of Rural Development के अंदर है भारत Rural Livelihood Foundation. Okay. So yeah. And the chief executive right now of BRLF is Prathamesh Ambasta. So Prathamesh Ambasta is important. Bharat Rural Livelihood Foundation is important. They've come up with a report for the first time. The name of that particular report is Tribal Development Report 2022. According to the 2011 census, how much tribal population do we have? 8.6%, right? बाकी शेड्यूल कास्ट को हम रिजर्वेशन 15% देते हैं, शेड्यूल ट्राइब को कितना देते हैं? 7.5%, ओबीसी को 27%, ईडब्ल्यूएस को 10%. ये तो हमें पता ही है. Out of the 257 scheduled tribe districts, now we are talking about scheduled tribe districts over here, right? They're saying at least 90% are in the forest or hilly or dry areas, and they account for 80% of the India's tribal population. ठीक है जी. सो इन ट्राइबल डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स की बात हो रही है, ठीक है. कितने ट्राइबल डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैं? जितने भी हैं उनमें से 90% ट्राइबल डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स जो हैं, जहां पे हमारे देश के 80% शेड्यूल्ड ट्राइब्स रह रहे हैं, they are either in forest or in hilly areas, in dry areas, meaning thereby socio-economic development वहां पे नहीं है या बहुत कम है. ठीक है. So it was in the National Forest Policy of 1988 that the domestic requirements of local people were explicitly recognized for the very first time. So you've done this with me. This is your homework. In fact, I think वो revision में I'm going to use those things. But तब तक खुद भी करके आओ कि World Indigenous Day वाला, you know, what is that date that commemorates the indigenous population? ठीक है. And theme also of it. We've done this in the class. So Tribal Development Report of 2022. बहुत ही simple. भारत Rural Livelihood Foundation कब बना? 2013. कौन सी मिनिस्ट्री के अंदर है? ये मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ ट्राइबल अफेयर्स मत सोच लेना, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रूरल डेवलपमेंट के अंदर है. ठीक है. प्रथमेश अंबस्ता इज द वन हु इज द चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव. पहली बार ये रिपोर्ट बनी है, ट्राइबल डेवलपमेंट रिपोर्ट. ठीक है. अब this is also something that you guys have read. I'm sure you've read it कि बहुत देर के बाद, in fact after almost 40 years, Mauna Loa, the world's largest active volcano, which is situated in the US state of Hawaii, it has erupted for the first time in almost 40 years. ये eruption का duration कितना रहेगा? That is very uncertain. So the scientist is like, इतनी देर से erupt नहीं हुआ है तो शायद अभी you know बहुत देर तक इसका चलता रहेगा. ठीक है. So now in the initial hours of eruption, so यहाँ पे almost 40 लिखा है, यहाँ पे 38 लिखा है. ठीक है. It is not contradicting each other. There we've just written, so I have मतलब that is just like an approximation, ऐसे round figure कर लिया है, but 38 year long slumber. So initial hours of eruption में थोड़ा थोड़ा वो crater में से you know lava निकलने लग गया, but then it started going and flowing down the hill also. So most eruptions originate in Hawaii's summits and rift zones, right? Rift zones are area that have weak cracks and they allow the magma to push up against the rock above, and then it makes its way to the surface and then it starts flowing down hill. India की अगर हम बात करें तो Barren Island is the only active volcano in India It is located in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, right? And North and Middle Andaman mein. The first eruption in Barren Island, it took place in 1787. When did it take place? 1787. And since then, it has erupted more than 10 times, and the recent eruption was 2017. So Mount Loa कहाँ पे? हवाई में है, ठीक है. ऑलमोस्ट 40 इयर्स के बाद इट हैज इरप्टेड. कितनी देर तक इरप्ट होता रहेगा साइंटिस्ट को भी नहीं पता है, ठीक है. एंड इट इज नॉट जस्ट स्टेइंग इन द क्रेटर, इट इज ऑल्सो फ्लोइंग डाउन द हिल. But however, lives will not be lost because enough time has been given wherein we can displace the people who are residing close by. लेकिन infrastructural problems तो आएंगी ही आएंगी, ठीक है. Then is your Barren Island, and Barren Island is the only active volcano which is there in India, in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Okay, and it was, the first eruption was in 1787, and it has erupted more than 10 times, and the recent eruption was 2017. तो volcanoes भी कर लिए. अभी हम लोग थोड़ी देर के बाद अभी इधर flood storms वगैरह की भी बात हो रही है, ठीक है. सो ये लॉस एंड डैमेज फंड तो हमें पता ही है. दिस हैपेंड इन COP27, एंड देन देयर वाज अ वेरी रीसेंट रिपोर्ट दैट वाज मेड by the World Meteorological Organization. We'll just see that who's the head and where's the headquarter and all of that in some time. So World Meteorological Organization and the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, plus कौन सी organization? World Meteorological Organization. इन्होंने एक रिलीज की रिपोर्ट. उस रिपोर्ट का नाम क्या है? The State of the Climate in Asia 2021. Okay, so the State of the Climate in Asia 2021, wherein they have said that because of floods and storms, the most affected country is China. And India is the second most affected country जहां पे बहुत ज्यादा economic loss हुआ है in 2021 because of floods and storms, right? In fact, कितना हमारे को damage हुआ है? $7.6 billion US. So we'll keep in mind $7.6 billion US, right? So this is making like we're sort of, I mean, we didn't do it, but they are making a contention for us कि इनको भी loss and damage fund में इतना पैसा मिलना चाहिए. So during 2021, now CLAT sample paper mein there was a question on cyclones. So we are going to do that well. We are going to see that which are those cyclones that took place according to this particular report in India. Then since this report is just talking about 2021, then we are also going to talk about 2022 क्योंकि हमने तो पेपर अभी देना है, हमने तो दोनों साइड से देखना पड़ेगा हमें. दूसरी चीज जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, जो कि आप लोगों ने करी होगी, बिकॉज जब हम लोगों ने सैंपल पेपर की डिस्कशन की थी, आई हैड टोल्ड यू काइंडली गो एंड रीड हाउ अ साइक्लोन इज नेम्ड. सो आई नो दैट यू हैव डन इट, बट लेट्स जस्ट रिवाइज इट. So in 2021, India experienced 5 cyclonic storms, all right, with a maximum sustained wind speed of more than 34 knots. The extremely severe cyclonic storm was Takute, ठीक है, and it formed over the Arabian Sea. So Arabian Sea के ऊपर Takute करके नाम है. So that was the most severe cyclonic storm. This was followed by the severe cyclonic storm of Storm Yas. It hit West Bengal, northern Odisha, causing a lot of damage, right? Then was Cyclone Gulab, right? This landed on Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. Then Cyclone Shaheen, right, was formed from the remnants of Cyclone Gulab only, and it caused a lot of heavy rain in Gujarat. And finally, 2021, the year ended with Cyclone Storm Jawad. ठीक है. So Cyclone Takute, then Cyclone Storm Yas, then Cyclone Gulab, then Cyclone Gulab के remnants में से Cyclone Shaheen, and then Cyclone Jawad. राइट, जैसे लर्न करना है करो, जो भी उटपटांग अपने तरीके बनाने हैं बनाओ, बस लर्न कर लेना, ठीक है. ये रिपोर्ट में नहीं लिखा है, बट ये दोनों के दोनों भी 2022 में तो आए हैं. सो साइक्लोन असानी एंड साइक्लोन सित्रंग, ठीक है. साइक्लोन एम्फान के बारे में तो हमने पढ़ा ही है, वो जो हमारे सैंपल पेपर में आया था. सो साइक्लोन सित्रंग एंड साइक्लोन असानी, ठीक है. सो टकूटे हो गया, स्टॉर्म यास हो गया, फिर उसके बाद गुलाब, गुलाब के बाद शाहीन, शाहीन के बाद जावद, राइट. एंड 2022 में सित्रंग एंड असानी, ठीक है, so these are the ones that you have to keep in mind. Now let's go on to what is the World Meteorological Organization. So this was made in 1950, 1950 में ये बना, and it came into force in 1951. Fine, specialized agency, no, it was made in 1950, it became a UN specialized agency in 1951. जिनीवा स्विट्जरलैंड में हेडक्वार्टर है, 187 मेंबर्स हैं, 6 मेंबर टेरिटरीज हैं, प्रेसिडेंट इज गर्हार्ड एड्रियन एंड सेक्रेटरी जनरल इज पेटरी टालस. दोनों का नाम लर्न कर ही लो, ठीक है. सो सेक्रेटरी जनरल एंड president. Now you have to understand, sometimes in certain organizations, because you see there is a chairman, there is a president, वो देखना पड़ता है कि पूछा क्या है आपसे, ठीक है. So yeah, okay, anyway. So then is your UN Economic Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. कुछ नहीं, एशिया और पैसिफिक कंट्रीज इंटर गवर्नमेंटल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जहाँ पे सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के लिए काम वाम ये लोग करते हैं, ठीक है. इट इज वन ऑफ द रीजनल कमीशंस ऑफ द यूनाइटेड नेशंस, 1947 में बना. अच्छा, ये वाला बना जब हम आजाद हुए और ये वाला बना जब हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को हमने इम्प्लीमेंट किया, ठीक है. सो हेडक्वार्टर इज इन बैंकॉक, थाईलैंड, एंड द एग्जीक्यूटिव सेक्रेटरीज Armida Salsia Ali's Jahabana. Right, such beautiful names they have. Anyway, so बहुत सारे नाम आ रहे हैं, है ना, and I know it takes some time, but कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, बार बार उसको करते रहो, you will be able to do it. कौन सा पूरा का पूरा नाम तुम लर्न करते हो, मुझे भी पता है कि तुम लर्न नहीं करते, अपने काट माट के कुछ भी तरीके से करते हो, but do it, right? It's very important, especially all these cyclonic storms and all. Okay, now comes, how do you name a cyclone? Ye Shaheen and Gulab and this and that, how do you name this? So cyclones that form in every ocean basin across the world are named by these regional specialized meteorological centers. Regional, एक पूरे region के लिए एक specialized meteorological center है, ठीक है. और हो गए tropical cyclone warning centers. So regional specialized meteorological centers and tropical cyclone warning centers. हमारा जो इंडियन मेट्रोलॉजिकल डिपार्टमेंट है, जो अभी थोड़ी देर में करेंगे, उसका हेड एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट इज वन ऑफ द 6 रीजनल स्पेशलाइज्ड मेट्रोलॉजिकल सेंटर्स. इनफैक्ट ये नेम भी करता है साइक्लोन्स को, right? And we'll just see how, right? And it is also mandated to issue advisories to 12 other countries in the region. वो उसको बताना पड़ता है, वार्निंग देनी पड़ती है कि साइक्लोन आने वाला है, स्टॉर्म आने वाला है. अब now in the year 2000, there were a group of nations called World Meteorological Organization and United Nation Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. तो ये दोनों की दोनों organizations को साथ में मिला दिया, WMO and United Nation Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. इसमें कौन सी कंट्रीज हैं? सो बांग्लादेश, इंडिया, मालदीव्स, म्यांमार, ओमान, पाकिस्तान, श्रीलंका एंड थाईलैंड. ओके, सो बांग्लादेश, इंडिया, मालदीव्स, म्यांमार, ओमान, पाकिस्तान, श्रीलंका एंड थाईलैंड. इन्होंने सबने बोला कि हम लोग इकट्ठे मिलके वी विल डिसाइड ऑन व्हाट टू नेम द साइक्लोन्स इन आवर रीजन्स. Fine. Once they are done with this, then they will give it to these organizations, the World Meteorological Organizations, and those panels will sit and they will be like, "Haan, theek hai, you are. These names are okay." And what are the specifications of, the instructions that they need to follow? That will come in the next slide, but let's just understand this first. Okay, so Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Myanmar, Oman, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Thailand. Ye in the year 2000 mein, they came together, they said, let's start naming our cyclones and all of that. And then later on in 2018, this further increased, and also UAE, Yemen, Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they all became a part of this thing कि हम लोग साथ में मिलके नाम बनाएंगे इन cyclones का. While picking the names, what are the rules that they have to follow? The first is it should be neutral to politics and political figures. Like किसी politician के नाम पे नहीं होना चाहिए, किसी religion को belittle नहीं करना है, किसी culture को, किसी gender को belittle नहीं करना पड़ेगा. We can't hurt the sentiments of any group of people across the globe. Okay, it cannot be rude or cruel in nature, right? It has to be short and easy to pronounce. बार-बार लिखी जा रहे हैं, offensive नहीं होना चाहिए. So of course to drill the point across, because it's a cyclone, it's going to create a disaster. Now you can't just name it on some politician, right? Because that's anyway. So maximum length of the name will be 8 letters is what they are saying. ठीक है, so easy to pronounce होना चाहिए. And proposed name के साथ आप pronunciation भी बताएंगे कि किस तरीके से इसको pronounce करना है. Like should it be gulab, should it be gulab, or whatever, right? And names of tropical cyclones over the North Indian Oceans will not be repeated. Once used, it will cease to be used again, and thus the names should be new. नए नए नाम होने चाहिए. So ऐसे as such इन लोगों ने क्या किया हुआ है, एक ऐसे टेबल सा बनाया हुआ है ना, इन सारी की सारी कंट्रीज का नाम लिखा हुआ है. एंड सो लाइक बांग्लादेश के सामने कोई नाम लिख दिया, इंडिया के सामने कोई नाम लिख दिया, ऐसे ऐसे करके जब एंड आता है फिर जाके वो नेक्स्ट लिस्ट के ऊपर ऐसे ऐसे करते हैं. सो आई मीन इट्स इजी नाउ. ओके, सो वी स्पोक अबाउट द cyclonic storms. Let's keep this in mind. So Takute, we are talking about 2021. So Takute ho gaya, Storm Yas ho gaya, Gulab, Shaheen, Jawat, and then Sitrang and Asani. Then is World Meteorological Organization and UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Then how is it named? There are 6 regional specialized meteorological centers. Amongst them, one is Indian Meteorological Department, which not only helps in naming the cyclones, but also is mandated to tell the people around the region about the storms and the cyclones that are going to happen. Okay, in the year 2000, there was made a group, and this group consisted of Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Myanmar, Oman, Pakistan, श्रीलंका, थाईलैंड. फिर 2018 में दूसरे कंट्रीज बोले भाई हमें भी नाम बनाना है तो हमें भी इसका पार्ट बनाओ. तो यूएई आ गया, सऊदी अरेबिया आ गया, ईरान आ गया, कतर आ गया, येमेन आ गया. ठीक है. एंड इफ वी कीप इट सिंपल, डोंट ऑफेंड एनीवन, कीप इट शॉर्ट, 8 letters, and don't repeat it. Those are the things. But of course, like वो लिखा है अलग अलग religious beliefs and this and that. Now, Indian Meteorological Department made in 1875, ये भी हमने पहले किया हुआ है. ठीक है. Indian Meteorological Department हमने बनाया 1875 में. H.F. Blandford was the one who was appointed the meteorological reporter to the government of India. पहला डायरेक्टर जनरल जो हमारा Indian Meteorological Department का था, that was Sir John Eliot, right? And कैलकाटा में ये हेडक्वार्टर था, फिर बाद में शिमला में गया, फिर पुणे में गया, अभी न्यू दिल्ली में है. तो न्यू दिल्ली में ही है. अंडर द मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ अर्थ साइंसेज, जैसी अर्थ साइंसेज आता है, डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह कम्स टू माइंड. एंड करंट डायरेक्टर जनरल इज मृत्युंजय मोहपात्रा. सो मृत्युंजय मोहपात्रा, 1875, न्यू दिल्ली, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ अर्थ साइंसेज. दिस इज व्हाट यू हैव टू कीप इन माइंड. ज्यादा से ज्यादा जॉन एलियट दिमाग में रख लेना, ये ब्लैनफोर्ड रहने देना. चलो अभी आप पढ़ चुके हो, पर इतना दिमाग मत खर्चना इसके ऊपर. Then comes your daily wage to laborers. Reserve Bank of India ने it has released a data in November. All that you have to keep in mind is for agricultural or even for non-agricultural daily wage earners, जो सबसे कम पैसा दे रहा है वो मध्य प्रदेश है. ठीक है. नॉन एग्रीकल्चरल लेबरर्स के लिए भी लोएस्ट इज मध्य प्रदेश. ठीक है. मध्य प्रदेश, गुजरात, त्रिपुरा सबसे कम. एंड जो हाईएस्ट दे रहा है वो केरला है, फॉर एग्रीकल्चरल एज वेल एज नॉन एग्रीकल्चरल. ठीक है. सो दैट इज व्हाट दिस एंटायर थिंग इज ऑल अबाउट. यू कैन जस्ट पॉसिबली जस्ट लर्न दिस. सो हाईएस्ट कौन दे रहा है? केरला. लोएस्ट कौन दे रहा है? मध्य प्रदेश, गुजरात, त्रिपुरा, for agricultural as well as for non-agricultural. ठीक है. Then is COP27 Agriculture finally on table. ये क्यों है important? क्योंकि कुछ ना इंडिया ने, एक सेकेंड, एक तो ये पहली बार हुआ है COP27 में that agriculture को अपना इतना भाव मिला है. ठीक. And the second thing is India has opposed a resolution. This is also COP27 only. So we know COP27 कहाँ पे हुआ है वो सब हमने किया है. यहाँ पे क्या है? The only program that was under the UNFCCC on agriculture and food security was something called the Coronavia Joint Work on Agriculture. This was established in 2017 in COP23 in Bonn, Germany. Okay, so कोरोनिविया, ये नाम लर्न कर लेना, बिकॉज इन्हीं के रेजोल्यूशन को इंडिया ने अपोज किया है. फाइन. नाउ ये जॉइंट वर्क ग्रुप तो होता था यूएनएफसीसीसी के कॉप्स में, है ना, 2017 के बाद आ रहा था, बट नोबडी रियली यूज्ड टू लिसन टू देम, इतना भाव नहीं मिलता था. पहली बार इनको एक एग्रीकल्चर एज अ टॉपिक को, या फूड सिस्टम एंड एग्रीकल्चर को एक सेपरेट टेबल मिला है in any COP of UNFCCC, and that is COP27. Fine. There was a dedicated discussion on food and agriculture, because food and agriculture, of course, there's climate change, and so kahin pe drought ho rahi hai, kahin pe heat wave की वजह से हमारी प्रोडक्शन कम हो रही है, कहीं पे बहुत ज्यादा बारिश के कारण फ्लड्स हो रहे हैं. So because of which, our crop cycle is changing also, and it is getting impacted. But secondly, and even more importantly, agricultural sector also contributes to emission of greenhouse gases, especially nitrous oxide, right? And which is way more bad for your ozone layer than even carbon dioxide for that matter. ठीक है, मीथेन की भी बात अगर हम बोले तो वो एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर के साथ इंक्लूडेड है. सो हेंस, कीपिंग दीज टू थिंग्स इन माइंड, वी गेव इट अ सेपरेट पवेलियन. सो ऑल यू हैव टू कीप इन माइंड ओवर हियर इज देयर वाज अ सेपरेट पवेलियन. नाउ हु होस्टेड दिस पवेलियन? सो रॉकफेलर फाउंडेशन, CGIAR, and United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, UNFAO, is super duper important. तो specialized agency है UN की, made in 1945. Q Dongyu is the one who's the Director General. Rome is the headquarter. Now, what have we said no to, or what have we opposed? So you have to understand, all of these people are sitting and talking about how agricultural sector is also emitting a lot of greenhouse gases, which of course is impacting our ozone layer rather badly. But the point is that India says that these are not luxury emissions, these are survival emissions of the poor. ठीक है, तो ये कहते हैं कि ये ग्रीन वॉशिंग करना बंद करो. ये जो इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर की एमिशंस को तुम बोल रहे हो कि these emissions are okay because industrialization is so important, but then you're saying agricultural sector, they should really get industrialized because of the fact that these emissions are really bad for the ozone layer. While they are, but these are survival emissions, because especially in a country like India, which is agrarian based, there are so many people who are their livelihood depends upon agriculture. I don't know whether you come from an agricultural background or not, but if you ever talk to a farmer, they would rather work on their own fields and be their own bosses than actually go and, pick up their saman and go and work in an industry under somebody. So वो कम कमा लेंगे, लेकिन वो खुद का कमाएंगे, उनका खुद की जमीन है. They're very, very proud of that. And that is what is their livelihood. Now, having said that, of course, sustainable agriculture is important. तो कर रहे हैं ना, PM प्रणाम स्कीम उसी चीज के लिए तो बनाई है, जहां पे 1 नेशन 1 फर्टिलाइजर के बारे में बात की है. उसके हमने न्यूट्रिएंट्स को चेंज किया है. अभी हम BT कॉटन एंड मस्टर्ड की भी बात करेंगे, बिकॉज उसके ऊपर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने मना कर दिया है. देन PM प्रणाम स्कीम क्या है? वी आर नॉट पुटिंग एक्स्ट्रा मनी ओवर देयर, बट वी आर सेइंग ऑल्टरनेटिव न्यूट्रिएंट्स को यूज करो. तभी तो नमामि गंगे को अर्थ गंगा बोला है, जहां पे जीरो कॉस्ट नेचुरल फार्मिंग की बात की है. सो वी आर लुकिंग इनटू द ऑल्टरनेटिव्स, बट यू कांट possibly put sanctions upon countries just because the agricultural sector is emitting certain greenhouse gases. You give us alternatives. So that is what India has said. So in this particular case, just two things, very simple. Coronivia joint work on agriculture. When was it introduced? It was introduced in COP23, which happened in 2017 in Bonn, Germany, right? And Fiji took the presidency of this particular thing. And secondly, the pavilion has been hosted by UNFAO, right, along with other organizations, the prime being Rockefeller. Okay? And we oppose this. Why did we oppose it? Because of the fact that we felt that, these are not luxury emissions, these are survival emissions, and don't start greenwashing us. तुम इंडस्ट्रियल वाली एमिशंस को खत्म करो, क्योंकि जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज है वहां पे तो ज्यादा इंडस्ट्रीज है ना, तो वो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज को बोल रही है. डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज बोल रही है भाई हमें तो इतना ज्यादा डैमेज हो गया. इंडिया इज लाइक पर कैपिटा कार्बन एमिशन तो हमारी बहुत ही कम है, तो तुम हमारी तरह करो, मतलब हम एग्रीकल्चर तो कर रहे हैं लेकिन पर कैपिटा अगर हम एमिशन की बात करें तो बहुत ही कम है. इट इज लेस, वे लेसर देन यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, राइट. ऑल्दो जितना कार्बन एमिशन की बात करें तो हाँ ठीक है, इंडिया को थोड़ा ज्यादा है बिकॉज यू हैव टू लुक एट द पॉपुलेशन ऑल्सो, राइट. बट पर कैपिटा हमारी कम है. Anyway, now GM mustard is something which is very important. So we are going to do BT mustard, BT cotton. GM mustard हमने पहले भी किया है, हमारे सैम्पल पेपर में भी आया है. तो जितने भी आर्टिकल्स हुए हैं GM mustard के ऊपर, I have tried to put them all together so that we can revise it once and for all. ठीक है. Now why is this in news right now? Let me just give you a sort of like a okay. Let's start off with the very first thing and then we will go ahead. So GM mustard, this was done on YouTube. Let's repeat it and थोड़ा बहुत कर लेते हैं, ठीक है. So हमने क्या पढ़ा था, हमने ये पढ़ा था कि genetically modified crops जो होते हैं वो इसीलिए बनते हैं ताकि वो pest resistant हो सके, ताकि उनकी productivity ज्यादा हो सके. Now, but however, because you know you're taking strains from different species and then you're creating something else, it might even lead to a lot of pest attack. You know, what if they you know a lot of pests, बहुत बड़ा पेस्ट अटैक भी हो सकता है, पेस्ट रेजिस्टेंट भी हो सकता है, adversely human life को impact भी कर सकता है, नहीं भी कर सकता है. I mean, there's always a chance. And so hence, you know, we have these two levels. The first level wherein the approval is given by something known as the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. Now, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, GEAC. Fine. Now, this is under the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Bhupendra Yadav is the cabinet minister. अब ये GEAC जो है यहाँ पे ये हाँ बोल देती है कि चलो ठीक है, हाँ ठीक है, ये you know this is okay, this the environment will not go bad because of this, और human life को इतना problem नहीं होगा. But even though they have said yes, that doesn't mean that the union ministry has said yes. So the second level of approval for a genetically modified crop in our country is when the government of India says, chalo theek hai, ab cultivation karna shuru kar do. Theek hai. So now this had happened. The government also said yes. But now there have been a lot of protests wherein the Supreme Court has put a hold on the cultivation of GM mustard. So that's the background. Let's revise this again. So अब इसमें हम लोगों ने क्या किया कि GEAC ने बोल दिया environmental release is okay of the transgenic hybrid mustard DMH for seed production. Now DMH कहाँ गया, चलो ठीक है इधर ही आ जाते हैं. हाँ, so who has developed it? It has been developed by Delhi University. DMH का क्या full form है? धारा मस्टर्ड हाइब्रिड. फाइन, धारा मस्टर्ड हाइब्रिड. किसका ब्रेन चाइल्ड है? दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में एक फॉर्मर वाइस चांसलर हैं दीपक पेंटल. ठीक है, सो दीपक पेंताल और पेंटल और व्हाटएवर, जस्ट लर्न हिज नेम, राइट. दिस आइडिया वाज कंसीव्ड बाय मिस्टर दीपक, yes, and developed using the Barnes-Baster technology. Fine. And यही वाली टेक्नोलॉजी बीटी कॉटन के लिए भी यूटिलाइज हुई है. अब यहाँ पे अगर हम बात करें तो ये GEAC, जेनेटिक इंजीनियरिंग अप्रेजल कमिटी, इट फंक्शंस अंडर यूनियन मिनिस्ट्री, ये हमें पता चल गया. ठीक है, रूल्स 1989 के अंदर ये चीज बनी है. चेयरमैन बाकी इनके श्री AK जैन है. ठीक है, who is the additional secretary and chairperson of GEAC. Additional secretary of what? Of this ministry. जिसके कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर कौन है? भूपेंद्र यादव. So अभी तक क्या पता चला? GEAC जो है जेनेटिक इंजीनियरिंग अप्रेजल कमिटी किसके अंडर बनी? रूल्स 1989 के अंदर. ठीक है, रूल्स ऑफ मतलब यही है, GEAC रूल्स ऑफ 1989 के अंदर बनी. चेयरमैन है श्री AK जैन, who is the additional secretary of Union Environment Ministry and also the chairman of this particular committee. Okay, now DMH में हमने बात करी है कि इसका फुल फॉर्म क्या है? धारा मस्टर्ड हाइब्रिड. किसका ब्रेन चाइल्ड है? फॉर्मर वाइस चांसलर ऑफ दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी मिस्टर दीपक पेंताल. चलो पेंताल ही कर देते हैं. ठीक है, एंड डेवलप्ड यूजिंग द बार्नेस-बास्टर टेक्नोलॉजी. ठीक है, अब इसके अंदर क्या है कि बाय जेनेटिकली मॉडिफिकेशन, साइंटिस्ट एट दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी सेंटर फॉर जेनेटिक मैनिपुलेशन, दे हैव डेवलप्ड दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग DMH11. एंड इन्होंने बोला हाँ ठीक है, इट डजंट रियली मैटर, यू जस्ट गो अहेड विद इट. ये पहली बार होगा अगर इसकी कल्टिवेशन अलाउ कर दी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने, उन्होंने होल्ड पे डाला है. क्यों डाला है अभी देखते हैं. तो ये पहली बार होगा कि कोई ऐसा क्रॉप जो हम कंज्यूम कर सकते हैं वो जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड होगा, क्योंकि बीटी कॉटन थोड़ा ना कंज्यूम करते हैं, कॉटन तो पहनते हैं, ठीक। नाउ पंगा क्या हुआ है, व्हाट आर द पीपल सेइंग, व्हाई आर दे फाइलिंग पिटिशंस इन द सुप्रीम कोर्ट? दे से जीएम मस्टर्ड विद obliterate the honeybees. Now what are the honeybees, and how are the why are honeybees related to mustard? So they say mustard is the only natural crop that the bee farmers depend upon, and in case you make it GM mustard तो वो bees बेचारी क्या ही खाएंगी, तो उनके लिए बहुत ही problem हो जाएगी, and they are protesting against it. So Supreme Court as of now has put environmental release of GM mustard on hold. You just have to keep this in mind, okay? India is also a major exporter of honey, and so hence, if there's a problem to honeybees, we will not have honey, we will not export, we will not earn foreign exchange, so it will be bad for us also. ठीक है? And of course, जो farmers हैं, वो उनके ऊपर भी, livelihood के ऊपर भी problem आएगी. लेकिन ऑन द अदर हैंड अगर हम बात करें तो रिस्ट्रिक्शन, ओके, इट्स नॉट रिटन हियर, चलो आई विल जस्ट टेल यू ना, कनाडा वगैरह में भी ना ये वाला they are using this genetically modified version of mustard, and they say nothing wrong, nothing happens to the bees, fine. But that is a report that is outside our country. It is not as if एक report होती है तो हम लोग उस हिसाब से काम करना शुरू कर देते हैं, but as of now Supreme Court ने मना कर दिया. इसके अलावा the only thing that you have to keep in mind is BT cotton में ball guard 2 cotton, it remains the only genetically modified crop which is allowed to be cultivated in India. It was developed by US giant Bayer Monsanto. So Bayer Monsanto becomes important. वहाँ पे दीपक पेंटाल becomes important. Delhi University, this is United States. It involves insertion of 2 genes, CRY1AB and CRY बोलते हैं, but you learn it this way, CRY1AB and CRY2BC, ठीक है. And although हमारे देश में एक और herbicide tolerant variety of BT cotton is being used by certain farmers, which is CP4 EPSPS, which is not supposed to be correct. That is not allowed by our country. So हमारे country में कौन से 2 are allowed? CRY1AB, CRY2BC, ठीक. From the soil bacterium bacillus, ठीक है, into the cotton seeds. तो कब हम लोगों ने ये अलाउ किया? 2002 में, because we said that this will allow the end of pink bollworm pest attack, which hasn't really happened. So that is a different story altogether. ठीक है? So GEAC is important, Ministry of Environment is important, 1989 is important. The chairman is Shri A.K. Jain. क्या नाम है? Shri A.K. Jain. ठीक है? फिर इसके बाद इन्होंने बोल दिया हाँ गो अहेड. दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी ने इसको बना भी दिया. ब्रेन चाइल्ड क्या था इनका? फॉर्मर वाइस चांसलर थे दीपक पेंताल, उनका दिमाग था जिसकी वजह से इट वाज डेवलप्ड बाय दिल्ली. अगर कोई पूछ ले DMH का फुल फॉर्म क्या है, सो धारा मस्टर्ड हाइब्रिड इज द नेम, ठीक है. एंड कनाडा ऑल ऑफ दीज पीपल आर लाइक हाँ बहुत बढ़िया किया है, यू शुड टोटली गो अहेड विद इट, क्योंकि ये हनी बीज को कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती इससे. लेकिन हमारे यहाँ पे प्रोटेस्ट चल रहे हैं दैट पूरा का पूरा जो हमारा हनी बीज हैं उनके ऊपर डेट्रीमेंटल इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा, जिससे इकोनॉमी के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा, मेरे लाइवलीहुड के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा. सो सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज सेड जस्ट पुट अ होल्ड ऑन इट राइट नाउ एंड लेट्स जस्ट फिगर इट आउट वेदर दे आर राइट और रॉन्ग. ओके, बाकी इसके अलावा हमने बीटी कॉटन के बारे में बात कर दी. यहाँ पे किसका ब्रेन चाइल्ड है? यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका में बेयर मॉन्सेंटो, ठीक है. CRY1AB, CRY2BC. इसके अलावा अगर कोई भी और वेरिएंट है इट्स नॉट अलाउड, फाइन. एंड ये किसके लिए, कौन से पेस्ट के लिए बना था? पिंक बोलवर्म. वो अलग बात है, पेस्ट अटैक्स जब हमने यूट्यूब में किए थे तो सम फार्मर्स आर सेइंग इवन दो दे आर ग्रोइंग बीटी कॉटन, वो पेस्ट अटैक अभी भी हो रहा है. Anyway, then is the restriction on the use of glyphosate. Fine. This is a pesticide which is really, really bad. It's bad for the soil. You see, if you know a little bit basics about fertility of the land, कैसे हम determine करते हैं, जहाँ पे earthworm के संख्या बढ़ जाती है, वो fertile soil है. ये earthworm के strength को decrease कर देता है, ठीक है? और that means वो fertile soil नहीं रहता है, वो fertile land नहीं रहता है, वो infertile होने लग जाता है, barren होने लग जाता है. So that is how this is bad for us. And of course, even if you consume it for animals also, it is really bad. If they end up coming and eating something from there. So, which is why, a lot of people have been protesting against the use of glyphosate. And I really found this funny because in the article, it started off with the Indian government is finally satisfied formally that the use of glyphosate, a widely used weedicide, involves health hazards for human beings and animals. And then they put this satisfied like that, okay? So, but however, the use is still restricted. So in case of a question with respect to this, if it says that, बिल्कुल ही prohibit कर दिया इसका use, तो ऐसा नहीं है. जो pest control वाले लोग हैं, वो लोग use कर सकते हैं, because according to the Indian government, they know how much to use and where to use it. But, randomly, like people are using in copious amount of this weedicide, it's very bad for the soil and the animals and human beings. So Union Ministry of Agriculture, Narendra Singh Tomar, right, decided to restrict the use of glyphosate. And they came up with this order of 2022. ठीक है? 35 brands हमारे देश में available हैं. And now this is where it is a cause of concern, because in India, glyphosate is only approved for tea crops and for non-crops area. जहाँ पे crops ही नहीं है, वहाँ पे weeds ना grow हो तो उसके लिए, and tea crop वाले area के लिए, मतलब Assam, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, these are the major tea plantation areas. But however, the maximum amount of usage happens in Uttar Pradesh, right, followed by Gujarat, then Jammu and Kashmir, Tamil Nadu, Assam. यहाँ पे लिखा नहीं है लेकिन पंजाब भी है, ठीक? तो जहां पे यूज करना था, जिसके लिए यूज करना था, उसके लिए यूज नहीं हो रहा है. बाकी हर जगह के लिए यूज हो रहा है. जहां पे नॉन क्रॉप एरियाज नहीं, क्रॉप एरियाज में भी यूज हो रहा है. वो क्रॉप टी क्रॉप्स तो है नहीं. So you're using it a lot, and it is really, really destroying the quality of your land. And of course, it's very bad for the people who are, for the human beings, also for the animals. Like I said, earthworm की strength को decrease कर देता है. ठीक है? And in case somebody goes against this particular order, then action will be taken against that person under the Insecticide Act of 1968. So glyphosate is important. It was approved for two places, tea crops and also non-crop areas, to remove the weeds, but it is being used in other areas also, right? So सबसे ज़्यादा कौन use कर रहा है? उत्तर प्रदेश, right? उत्तर प्रदेश के बाद कौन कर रहा है? गुजरात, ठीक है? और so this is an order of 2022. We are restricting the use of it. We are not eliminating, माने पूरा खत्म नहीं कर रहे हैं इसका use, ठीक है? And अगर पंगा होगा, अगर तुम इसको यूज करोगे, तो इंसेक्टिसाइड्स एक्ट ऑफ 1968 के अंदर appropriate action shall be taken against you. All right, then that is all from my side. हो गया आज का, ठीक है जी? So thank you very much. Kindly do your revision and I will see you in some time. All right, thank you. Bye bye.